Welcome to the LifeCast, valuing life and transforming lives. Find out more at elifenetwork.com. Here now is your host, Rich Bennett.
Greetings, friends, and welcome to this week's episode of the LifeCast. Thanks so much for being with us as we prepare to wrap up the month of April. Coming up in our second segment, I'll be joined by my Life Network colleague, Alyssa Dwire, who leads up our annual Walk for Life, which is coming up on June 7th. But first, it's time for 3 life-affirming things you should know, our weekly look at what's happening nationally, in Colorado, and then a story of pro-life impact. But let's start with the national scene. We often hear the claim that abortion is healthcare. But for anyone paying attention, it's become abundantly clear that abortion, especially chemical abortion, is anything but life-affirming care. Chemical abortion pills are now the most common form of abortion in America, and they're being pushed with fewer safeguards than ever before, and the consequences have been devastating. In fact, the FDA's own data shows that thousands of women have suffered serious complications after taking these deadly pills. Over 4,200 women have reported complications, more than 1,000 have been hospitalized, and hundreds have lost so much blood that they've required transfusions. Tragically, at least 32 women have died. And given the sporadic reporting on abortion, this is likely very underreported data. And yet, instead of tightening safety standards, the FDA has weakened them. Once upon a time, doctors were required to see patients in person to verify pregnancy stage and follow up to ensure no complications occurred. And these protections, which were called risk evaluation and mitigation strategies, or REMS, have been completely gutted. In fact, since the COVID pandemic, these pills have been able to be prescribed up to 10 weeks of pregnancy by someone who's never even met that woman face to face. And the result is that more women are suffering, and many are doing so alone. And with no follow-up care, some find themselves in the ER, others are left traumatized by delivering their babies into toilets or bathtubs at their home. In fact, at Life Network, we've walked with women who've had such abortions and told us that every time they use the bathroom, it's like returning to the scene of their trauma. No one who truly cares about women's health care would support these do-it-yourself at-home abortions. Now, Americans United for Life is calling on the FDA to reinstate basic safety precautions for chemical abortion. You can join them in standing for women's health and safety by signing their petition, and we will share that link in our show notes. True healthcare never ends with a woman in an emergency room, or worse, losing her life. Let's be a voice for real care and true compassion. Next, we have a major answer to prayer coming out of Boulder, Colorado. The Boulder Abortion Clinic and the practice of infamous third trimester abortionist Dr. Warren Hearn has closed its doors for good. For 5 decades, this clinic gained national notoriety as a destination for women seeking late-term abortions, often in the final months or even final weeks of pregnancy. In fact, in a feature just last fall, The New Yorker dubbed Dr. Hearn America's abortion doctor. And now, at age 86, he has retired, and with that, the clinic has permanently shut down. Dr. Hearn was one of just a handful of physicians in the country willing to perform abortions right up to 40 weeks of pregnancy. In fact, according to his own published research, 70% of his late-term abortions were on healthy women carrying healthy babies. That's an estimated 350 viable babies each year lost not due to medical necessity, but often for reasons completely unrelated to the mother's health. The clinic first opened in January 1975, just 2 years after Roe v. Wade was decided. And earlier this year, it was reported that while Dr. Hearn was going to retire, the Boulder facility would continue offering abortions through 32 plus weeks gestation. But now, In an unexpected development, this clinic has closed permanently. In my view, this might be the most significant pro-life answer to prayer in Colorado since the overturning of Roe. Now, in a farewell posted on his website, Dr. Hearn wrote this: "This practice is my life's work. Although I love my work, I've wanted for years to be free from the operating room and the daily cares of a private medical practice. I must now leave this sacred commitment to others." Wow. It's heartbreaking that until the very end, Dr. Hearn saw his business focused on ending preborn life as a so-called sacred commitment. Now, sadly, clinics in Pueblo and Aurora continue to offer abortions into the second trimester and beyond. But there is no doubt that the closure of what may have been the most infamous and long-standing late-term abortion facility in America is a major pro-life milestone. For those of us who care deeply about women, men, and their preborn babies, this is a reminder that prayer matters. Persistence matters. And in keeping with our theme this year at Life Network, light overtakes darkness. Now let's close this first segment with this week's story of hope. We are thrilled to share a beautiful milestone. The very first baby has been born to a client served at our new East Side location. So if you recall, our Falcon Center opened its doors to patients the first week of November, and not long after, we met a courageous young couple originally from overseas who now call Colorado their home. And like so many we serve, they were facing significant financial hardship and unsure about how to move forward. But what they found inside our center was more than a pregnancy test. They found warmth, compassion, and practical support that they never knew existed. And they found a team who would walk with them every step of the way. While abortion was never their plan, it was the overwhelming support from parenting classes to material resources that gave them the confidence to say yes to this child with peace in their hearts. And just last week, they welcomed their baby into the world, a beautiful, healthy baby girl, and the very first born to a mom and dad who received care at our East Side Center. We pray that this little one is the first of thousands whose lives will be touched and saved through the ministry that God is building through you and through Life Network and friends like you in the years to come. Coming up next, I'll be joined by Life Network's Alyssa Dwire, and we'll talk about what we believe is the largest charitable walk for life in our country. Stay with us. You're listening to the LifeCast. Well, welcome back to the LifeCast, where we share real stories and important conversations that affirm life and inspire hope and celebrate the work that God is doing through pregnancy centers like ours. And today, I have the distinct pleasure to welcome a woman who provides leadership over our community's Walk for Life, which I think is the largest charitable walk for life in our nation. Alyssa Dwire is a Colorado Springs native and lifelong supporter of Life Network, where she has served as our events manager for 6 years. And she studied business and communication at Bob Jones University, where a persuasive speech assignment sparked her passion for pro-life ministry. Alyssa and her husband met in junior high and have been married for 5 years and have the cutest 2-year-old son. Her deep roots in the community and heart for the mission continue to fuel her commitment to seeing lives transformed and hope restored. Alyssa, welcome to the LifeCast.
Thank you so much for having me.
I got to the point where talking about your son, and I just had to add, he's like the cutest kid.
I think so. I'm a little biased, so it's good to hear it. But yes, he's so fun.
So let's just start by telling our listeners a bit about yourself and your work at Life Network.
Yeah. So as Rich said, I am a lifelong Life Network supporter. So my family always participated in Walk for Life. Growing up, I have early memories of that. Again, like Rich said, I have always been pro-life, but I really sparked an interest in being part of Life Network ministry, or really just pro-life ministry in general, in college. So I did a persuasive speech, and I chose to do it on why Christians should support pro-life ministries. And what I didn't realize was that I would end up persuading myself that I needed to get more involved. So from that moment on, I knew I really wanted to be involved in pro-life ministry. I just didn't know exactly what that would look like. So when I graduated, I had another job and did that for a couple months. And then the Lord just opened up doors to make it so that I could come to Life Network. So one Tuesday, I went to work and some circumstances happened that I was led to leave that organization. On Wednesday, my sister-in-law told me that she heard at church that Life Network was hiring. So Thursday morning, I applied. Thursday afternoon, I got a call asking me to come in for an interview. Friday, I interviewed. By Friday afternoon, I was offered the job. And by the next Tuesday, I was starting my work at Life Network. So it was just abundantly clear that that's where the Lord wanted me.
I love that. So you mentioned this paper that you had to do in college. Share a little bit more about just your personal pro-life story and how you went from there to now your leadership role on the Walk for Life and leading the way for Life Network.
Yeah. So I grew up always saying I was pro-life. I knew what pro-life meant, or at least I thought I knew what it meant, that babies need to be saved. And I knew that as Christians, we should be part of it. Like I said, I always went to the Walk for Life. But when I did research for this speech, I kind of started it from this, that the pro-life arena is really a battlefield. And I was talking about the different wars that we've had in American history and how in the different wars, the amount of lives that were lost. And I talked about how with the pro-life ministry, with abortions, that was the most lives we've lost on a battlefield. And I talked about how every battlefield needs soldiers, needs a game plan, and needs people to come and work for it. So for me, it was the captains, or the battle plan would be organizations like Life Network, who are really just on the front lines fighting it. But those people need soldiers, and the soldiers can be people who work in pro-life ministry, people who donate to pro-life ministries, people who pray for pro-life ministries. So I really talked about how being a part of being pro-life isn't just passively saying you're pro-life, but actually taking action and being a part of the battlefield of what we're doing.
So there was a fun moment at one of our 2 Walk for Life kickoffs where there was a woman there, and she was wearing a shirt from a year you recognized. And that really harkens back to just how long you and your family have been involved with the Walk for Life. But share that with our audience.
Yeah. So I was born, I'm going to give away my age. I am 29. So I was born at the end of 1995. And her shirt was from the Walk for Life in 1996, which was my first ever Walk for Life. It's when I was 6 months old. My dad always talks about how my first Walk for Life was in a stroller. So it was fun to see her there, that she had that t-shirt from my very first Walk for Life. And now we're working together to make this year's Walk for Life a success. So that was really cool for me.
So was the walk something you always looked forward to as a child?
Yes, it was. For us, it was the kickoff of summer. With summer's coming, so's the Walk for Life. So my earliest memory of the Walk for Life is I had to have been like 3 or 4 years old. And I remember walking around Prospect Lake, and I was in a stroller. I probably could have walked, but that's a long walk for a 3-year-old. So I'm sitting in a stroller, and I remember my parents walk right by the playground. And I'm like eyeing the playground, like, why are we not stopping? I really want to go to the playground. So that's my first memory, is that we didn't get to go to the playground. But every other memory since then has been nothing but happy. So
That's so great. Is it kind of surreal to have gone from that to now you lead the way every year for the Walk for
yeah,
Life?
yeah, definitely. I have so many memories of my dad, who was a pastor in town. I don't know if I had mentioned that, who he announced from the pulpit every Sunday, Walk for Life's coming, Walk for Life's coming. And we did the baby bottles and we were going to the Walk for Life. And now getting to be the behind the scenes, getting to be a part of it is just so cool. Like I said, it's so clear that the Lord led me here, and I'm so grateful to be. It really is my dream job. It's exactly what I've always wanted to do. So I'm thankful for it.
Well, I'm thankful that you're in that role. So, in your view, what makes the Walk for Life such a powerful part of Life Network's mission?
Yeah. So the mission is to cultivate a community that values life. And what better way to cultivate the community than bringing the community together? So my favorite part about the Walk for Life is at the very beginning of the walk, we have families that are part of our parenting program lead the way. So they're at the front of the start line, and they can see on that day that not only is Life Network behind them, but 2,000 other people are literally standing behind them to help them in their journey of being a parent. So I think that's the most powerful part, is for them to see that Life Network cares about them, but a lot of people in the Colorado Springs community, like I said, not only say they're pro-life, but prove they're pro-life in their actions.
I know it's such an encouragement to me and you and the team when, like last year, we had about 2,500 people who care about life, who care about what Life Network does, that were a part of the walk. And it is, I mean, especially in a state that, at least legislatively right now, is making decisions that are really far from God and far from affirming life. It's such an encouragement.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, how have you seen the impact of the walk? And that includes fundraising, awareness, community involvement. How have you seen that grow in the years that you've been involved?
Yeah, it's been really cool to see. So my first Walk for Life, because again, I started in September of 2018. So my first Walk for Life was in 2019. And we had 124 churches there, which is amazing. But then this past year, we had 155 churches. So we've seen that grow. We raised around $400,000. And then this past year, we raised $750,000.
Isn't that incredible?
It's amazing. So we've seen in 5 years it almost double the fundraising efforts. And then also just with our fundraisers. So like you said, we had about 2,500 people, but specifically what we call our fundraising walkers are people that get sponsors to Walk for Life. In 2019, we had 838, and last year we had 1,037. So again, 300 more people that are raising funds since the time that I started.
Well, and it's not a happy accident that, you picked the year 2019. Back at that point, we had 2 pregnancy centers, and now we have 4 pregnancy centers. And the walk has just played a critical role in that growth that you mentioned, to being able to expand what we do and reach more women and men for life.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I know for me, I think sometimes like I'm on the administrative side, I'm not actually meeting face to face with these patients that are going through these hard decisions. So sometimes it's hard for me to remember that like what we're doing matters. And for you, if you're participating in the Walk for Life, what you're doing matters, because these funds are what makes it so Life Network can offer these services completely free to all of our patients.
So share a little bit more about why it's so important for families, for churches, and for individuals to be a part of the Walk for Life.
Yeah. So recently I was reading a book by Brant Hansen, and he talked about how recently with social media, people love to get on a social media train and say what they think. But ultimately, if somebody posts something on social media, that's the only action they take. So say you post, especially during election years and things like that, people are so quick to say, I'm pro-life or save babies, abortion's wrong. And that's the only stance they take. And I would say that that kind of reminds me of in James, when Paul is talking about somebody who comes to you, a brother comes to you and says, I'm hungry, I'm thirsty. And you just tell them like, oh, go be fed, be clothed, but don't actually give them anything. Really, that's faith without works. And I would say that not supporting your local pregnancy center is a pro-life stance without works. And ultimately what the Bible says is that's dead. So if you're saying, I'm pro-life, I'm anti-abortion, or I'm pro-life, I think abortion's wrong, but you're not actually getting behind people who are working to help these families, then I would argue you're not actually pro-life, you're just anti-abortion. And there's a huge
Mm.
difference. So the Walk for Life is the opportunity for you to put your pro-life stance into action and actually do something that is making a difference for life in Colorado Springs.
It really is quite literally the opportunity to put your feet to your pro-life commitment.
Absolutely.
So this will be my ninth walk since leading Life Network or taking over as president in 2017. And I think my family and I walked several times before that. But, for me, a memory that sticks out, and it's kind of an unusual one, but 2 years ago, we had rain at the Walk for Life. It was overcast all morning. And right as the walk got started, drizzling coming down. And by the end of the walk, it was pouring.
Pouring, yes.
And I think the reason why it's such a sweet memory for me is even though we knew it was going to rain, even though the community knew it was going to rain, more than 2,000 people showed up.
It
And
was
so, you talk about we don't have fair weather supporters, quite literally, in Colorado Springs. And that year proved it. But I'm curious, do you have a favorite memory or maybe a couple memories that jump out from past walks?
Yeah, I do. So, like I said, my dad was a pastor, and so anyone who knows me for any length of time will know that I'm extremely competitive. And I get that from my dad. So, all growing up, his big thing was he was going to compete with somebody for fundraising. So, it was either another pastor or another member of the staff. Well, one year he decided that competing for fundraising wasn't quite enough. So he decided he was going to challenge some of the high school boys in the 5K. So it was this whole thing that was hyped up for weeks beforehand. Like, who's going to win, Pastor Jeff or these high school boys? And my dad is not a small guy who's a runner's build. Okay. My dad is 6'6" and he's a pretty stocky guy. Like, I don't know why he thought he could challenge these 15-year-old boys to a 5K, but he did. And I distinctly remember us standing on the side, and we were just so excited to see the outcome of this race. I remember they're at the very front, they're like ready to go. And my dad, sorry to throw you under the bus, but he got destroyed by these boys. And you would have thought that these boys won the Super Bowl with how excited that they were that they beat my dad in the 5K. So that was a really fun memory for me.
He probably did all that, knowing your dad, knowing that the outcome may not be in his favor, but
Absolutely,
he
yeah.
motivated some 15-year-olds to get involved in the walk. And that,
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone was so excited. Not only the 15-year-olds, but the families, their parents are there. Again, I was a member of the youth group. The whole youth group's there to see how it goes. What's also fun for me about that memory is my husband, who I wasn't even dating at the time, but he was part of our church. He ran in that 5K as well with his brother. So it's cool that both my families now, so the Dwire side and the Anderson side, were both at that Walk for Life, even before I was part of Life Network. So before I started working, and I'm sure long after I work here, both sides of my family are going to be supporting Life Network and the Walk for Life, which is so fun for me.
so I know you're competitive because every year at our Life Network staff meeting where we're kicking off the walk to our team, we talk about, and really it's become almost this running joke of, this is the year that we're going to beat the top team. This is the year we're going to beat Catholics for Life Network. And it's yet to happen, I think.
But like I say every year, this is our year. We are going to be them. Right now, we are in first place. So we got to stick with it.
But it is so cool to see groups like Catholics for Life Network. Last year, the church champion, I think once again, was Rocky Mountain Calvary.
Yes.
And so for those of you who are involved in El Paso County and you attend a church and it's not Rocky Mountain Calvary, this is your year, right?
Yes.
You can challenge. I think they've won 3 years running. But
Yes.
Alyssa, how has your personal involvement in the walk shaped your own views or strengthened your passion for life?
Yeah, I would say that if anything, it expanded my view of what it means to be pro-life. So I even remember when I came in for the interview with you and you asked me, like, what do you know about Life Network? And I really just knew about the Walk for Life, and I knew that there was a pregnancy center. And you began telling me more about what Life Network did. And then in the last 6 years, I've been able to really see that pro-life doesn't just mean pro-baby. It means pro-parent. It means pro-student who might not realize that their life has value because they were created in the image of God. It's pro-woman who has chosen abortion in the past and needs to know that her life still has value and that she's still loved and cared for and needs compassionate care just as much as anybody else. So for me, it's grown to the point where when I think of pro-life, I don't just think about babies. And yes, that's important. And I think about babies and I I love that that's part of what we do, but that's not all of what we do. So even at our ambassador kickoff, which you mentioned earlier, there was one of our ambassadors who heard about what we did with the in high schools with the Pursue program. And she mentioned how a couple years ago her son died by suicide, and she never realized that she can walk for life for him to show other people that their lives have value and that people will care if their lives aren't there anymore. So for me, that's been really impactful to see that pro-life means so much more than what I once thought it meant.
Well, just hearing you share that, it reminds me, I think it was last year, you and I got the opportunity to talk to a group of young professionals at a ministry here in town, and you just shared something very similar. And you could just see the 20-something heads in that room nodding and affirming that to be pro-life is to value life from the womb to the tomb. And that it means mom, that means dad, that means baby, that means coming alongside students and so much more that we get to do at Life
Exactly.
Network.
Yeah.
So, what are some ways that people can get involved, whether that's walking, donating, volunteering? And, maybe I'm a listener that I want to support Walk for Life, but I can't be there in person. How do we get involved?
Yeah. So no matter how you want to be involved, like Rich said, whether you want to donate, whether you want to walk yourself, or you want to volunteer, you're going to start at walkforlife.com. So go to walkforlife.com. That's where you can register to be a walker. It's where you can sponsor somebody. So if you are not able to walk, but you want to sponsor somebody, you can sponsor me or Rich, help Life Network staff, help it be our year, like we talked about. And you can sponsor me or Rich. Also, even if you're not in town, I would say that doesn't mean you can't participate in the Walk for Life. My sister, who, again, similar to me, our whole life, we went to the Walk for Life. Well, she lived in South Carolina for a few years. And on the first Saturday of June every year, she would go and do her own Walk for Life in South Carolina to show support for what we do. So don't think that you can't participate, even if you can't be at Memorial Park that day. But yes, register to walk, be a fundraising walker, because like I said, that's ultimately what allows us to keep our services free for clients. And if not, again, sponsor somebody else and volunteer. We have over 200 volunteer slots that we need filled for that day. So if you like to face paint, if you like to help with kids in the kids zone, I know for me, I tease that once I got hired, my whole family got hired, because all of them now volunteer. Both my husband's family and my family all volunteer on walk day. So it's a big family affair of volunteers.
I love every year looking over and seeing all of your tall brothers and your husband, I think, leading the kids walk.
Yes, it's so fun.
So tell us about the kids walk.
Yeah, so the kids, again, so Walk for Life, that's one of the best things about Walk for Life is it's for all ages, truly. Just like you said, life has value from the womb to the tomb. You can have fun at the Walk for Life from the womb to the tomb. So we have what we call the kids race, and it's for 3 to 9-year-olds to just do, it's really just like a lap around a park, but they love it. Again, they get their energy out, they get their juices flowing. And from a young age, they can see all these people come together to value life. So it's a fun time.
So as we wrap up, Alyssa, is there a final encouragement that you'd like to share with somebody who might be considering getting involved for the first time?
Yeah, I would just say that I honestly have never heard, from the time I was little to now, I've never heard somebody coming to the Walk for Life and regretting it. Even on, like Rich said, the day that it's raining, even if there's bad weather, there's something encouraging going on. So it's fun for everybody. I would say every family has their traditions. Make this the year that the Walk for Life becomes your tradition. For both Christian's family, like I said, and my family, it's always been a tradition. It always will be. So come join us in this tradition of valuing life in our city.
Well, and I've gotten to go to more than a dozen walks now, and it was really just that one year that the weather was a little rough. So typically that first Saturday in June, and of course this year, once again, Saturday, June 7th, we've been blessed with really good weather overall, and so we can pray to that end again this year.
Absolutely, yes.
All right. Well, Alyssa, thank you so much for your enthusiastic and excellent leadership for our community's Walk for Life. And I'm so grateful to walk alongside you in this vital mission.
Thanks. And thanks for having me again. And we look forward to seeing all of you at the Walk for Life on June 7th.
And once again, as Alyssa shared, if you'd like information about our community's Walk for Life, it's super easy. Just visit walkforlife.com, and that site has everything that you need to be part of the event. As always, if today's conversation encouraged you, we'd love for you to share this episode with a friend, and don't forget to subscribe so that you never miss a story of life and hope. Thanks for listening to the LifeCast, where we celebrate life, We speak up for the voiceless, and we highlight important life-affirming work like the Walk for Life. I hope you'll join us next week, where my guest will be Stephanie Laboyer, and she produced a really remarkable film that we'll be talking about called Dear Mommy. For executive producer Mike Segovia, producer Serena Dillon, I'm Rich Bennett. Thank you for being with us for this episode of the LifeCast.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the LifeCast. To find out more about Life Network, go to elifenetwork.com. Once you're there, you can check out the many outreaches we have available. From our men's services to our Bridges of Hope support program, you'll be sure to find a helping hand for yourself or someone else in their time of need. Also, we have many ways to get involved here at Life Network. Simply click on the Get Involved tab and see all the opportunities we have available to serve. We appreciate your prayers and support for this ministry. Find out how you can come alongside us by going to elifenetwork.com. Just search the top of the index for the green Donate tab. Thank you for listening in today. Be sure to join us next time for another episode of the LifeCast. The LifeCast is a ministry of Life Network.